Hello and welcome to another Firewood News Update. There's been a few firewood stories that have trickled in over the past month or so, and I wanted to go ahead and get them into the news. So this update is overdue, and I've been meaning to film it for a week or so, but I've just been really busy doing all kinds of things. So I made my notes. Forgive me if I'm reading off my notes here, but I'm just going to do this darn thing and get going on the news. So first up, we got a story out of Idaho. Pretty sure it's Idaho. The U.S. Forest Service in Idaho is looking for people who want firewood. This wood is coming from the collection efforts after they contained the Bench Lake fire. It was a forest fire that they contained, and they're repurposing as much wood and lumber as possible into firewood. The Facebook page for the Forest Service shows a large pile of logs, if you can find that. I don't have a link to it, but it's out there. And any logs marked with pink paint is for firewood. And those are logs that will not fit on logging trucks or are not suitable for logging. So any of the other wood is supposed to be left behind. And the weird thing about this is it says that there is a permit required to gather this firewood. So I guess you're going to have to contact your local Forest Service or the local authorities there and find out how to get your permit from the community government center there or whatever, and then you can go collect firewood from this forest fire. Kind of a neat deal. If you were out there and you needed wood, you were a firewood person, that would be a good way to go. I've never seen anything like that in my area, but if there was something big close by, I would probably look into going and cutting up a bunch of wood, because you could probably find a variety of different species and all that. Okay, so next, this is out of Colorado, kind of a neat story, but there's a whiskey company, it's called Tin Cup Whiskey, and they're offering firewood made from old whiskey barrels, and it's supposed to be a neat deal where you can sip on a glass of whiskey and burn whiskey barrel firewood. And it's funny because they say the firewood contains notes of or hints of pine, honey, cinnamon, and freshly cut grass. So if you're really a connoisseur there, you can get your sniffer going and your snifter and sniff on the fire and pick up all that and let me know how it goes. But if you talk about ridiculous, a bundle of this firewood sells for $92 online. So I would imagine you'd have to go to Tin Cup Whiskey somewhere, and you can find that bundled firewood while supplies last. $92 for a bundle of that firewood. If any of you guys that have firewood stands out there want to try to put a special reserve section in your stands for $92, let me know how that goes if anybody leaves the money. But this wood is, it's kiln dried for 48 hours at 160 to 180 degrees. It's bourbon barrel wood, so yeah, I guess it has to be kiln dried, because if you think about how dry it is when it makes a barrel, and then they soak whiskey in it for however many years. I don't know whether it's a 10, 15 year, whatever, but it probably soaks up a bunch of moisture from that whiskey, so then they kiln dry it. That's going on out there in the world. It's coming out of Colorado, but I'm pretty sure they ship all over the country if you're feeling like spending $92 for a little tiny bundle of wood and trying to pick up hints of freshly cut grass in a campfire. But anyways, next piece of news we have here, this is some wood stove related news, like we keep talking about with the EPA and all of this pollution regulation going on, and stemming from the 2015 Air Standards Act, the Clean Air Act in 2015. The EPA changed their testing method for certifying all these wood stoves. Apparently, stakeholders is what they call them. You see that word a lot when you start looking at government projects these days. Stakeholders, or people, various states and companies and things, were complaining that the testing methods weren't good because they were using what is known as crib wood. And some of y'all may know what this is, but crib wood is perfectly dimensional lumber. So it would be either a 4x4 stick or a 2x4 perfectly cut, and then they put that into the stoves and stack them and burn those. Well, a lot of people were complaining that the testing method wasn't good and wasn't fair and wasn't giving accurate certifications. So the EPA agreed to change the testing method and use what's known as cordwood. Cordwood is basically firewood. It's more accurate for testing when people are going to be burning firewood in stoves. Obviously, they're going to be using firewood. So cordwood is just basically wood that's cut in odd shapes into firewood, like you would split firewood, and it could be anything. It could be triangles, it could be squares, whatever, odd shapes. So it's more accurate for burning firewood in a wood stove. And they have changed that testing method. So now any of these certifications are going to be done using cordwood. And I want to put a note on this. I found this online on the EPA's website. And Google said that the story was updated like a month ago or just a few weeks ago. But this article could be quite old. But that did happen at some point in time since 2015. They had to change this method. So it may have been just within the last month or so, but they are still trying to test these stoves and figure it out and recertify them, and they're going to come out with updates. I've talked about it in past firewood videos. I can't remember what the next update is on the Clean Air Act. I think it's like 2030 or something. Don't quote me on that number, but they're going to review this stuff and they're going to come back out with new compliance measures and all kinds of crap. You never know. Anyways, that was a long story. Next, kind of a neat story out of Walmart. Walmart is selling a Ozio electric wall mount fireplace for $211. Now, this thing was typically selling for $500, and I went and looked myself, and it was selling for $199. So that's another $12 off or whatever right there. So $199 it's selling for, and it's usually $500. And this thing is a 60-inch LED screen with a touch control, remote control fireplace. It's portable, color changing, and it does have a heater in it. So it plugs into the wall, and I don't know what the voltage is on it or whatever. I didn't put that in my notes, but it runs off of a standard home electrical outlet. And it does put out, it has a heating element in it. It puts out warm air and has an LED display with fires on it. And you can change them all kinds of colors. And so people have just been raving about it, saying how beautiful the crystal display is and how neat the fireplace is and that it keeps you warm. And so maybe kind of a neat deal if you don't have a fireplace in your house and you want to have a little ambiance, set the mood, you can get one of these. $199. That's pretty good savings. $300 savings or something. Anyways, moving on. And by the way, that's spelled A-U-S-E-O, Ozio, A-U-S-E-O, if you want to look that up. Now, in Iowa, this is the next story. We had a fatal fire that was likely caused by fireplace embers, and there wasn't a lot of information out there on this story. I had to research real hard, but apparently a man and 3 dogs were killed, and that's just terrible. I don't know, fell asleep and the fireplace embers caught the living room on fire or whatever, but he was killed and 3 dogs. So thoughts and prayers go out to that family. That's a terrible thing to have happen. I've heard of that kind of stuff before. There was somebody else, I can't remember, it was a musician, sorry off the top of my head, but their parents fell asleep and died of like carbon monoxide poisoning from their fireplace or something, I think, in their house when they were a child. So that kind of thing does happen. It's important to remember your fireplace safety as much as you can. I know we all get kind of lax about that, and you start burning and you just take a nap or whatever. But it is important, I think, to kind of keep an eye on that stuff. I even, on a side note, if you want to hear a story, I had a smoker that was a friend that used to come by the house from time to time, and we threw the ashes into we just threw the ashes into a garbage can, and I thought they were all out. I mean, it obviously wasn't like a blazing cigarette butt we put in there, but there was an ashtray and it was full, and I don't even know if it was full. Threw the ashes in the garbage can caught on fire. We were sitting downstairs about half hour later and the smoke alarms went off. So I had to grab my garbage can and run from the upstairs office, and it was an office garbage can full of a bunch of paper and mail and crap. and run it smoking on fire and throw it out the back door of the house. But thankfully, nothing was hurt. Anyways, the next story is another just terrible story. And I don't know, some of y'all may have seen this in the news. I don't know, but in Aurora, Colorado, there was a mother who murdered a 5-year-old child. And this is fireplace-related news. She murdered her 5-year-old child and tried to put the remains in the fireplace to burn the body. And this happened last year on May 29th of 2023. And this woman was just sentenced last month. And the charges for this case was, it included tampering with a deceased body, attempting to influence a public servant, and second-degree murder. Now, she got 84 years in prison for that. And it's just a horrible story. The grandmother of the kid called the police, apparently, and told them that she was worried about some of the comments the mother had been making about her child and hadn't seen the child and was concerned about him. So the police came and did a welfare check or a wellness checkup, and the woman said that that she had given the baby up for adoption like a month ago. She said she just couldn't afford to have a kid, didn't have the resources, didn't want a kid, so she put it up for adoption, but she failed to provide any documents or documentation or anything showing that there was a legal adoption. And the adoption shelter or the adoption program in town that she referenced had no knowledge of the kid or no interaction with the mother or the kid. And then they also talked to a maintenance worker or something that was in the home and said that in the upstairs hallway when he was there was a bedroom door that was tied with rope across the hallway to another door, so the doors couldn't be opened, and they didn't know if somebody was locked in the bedroom. So the police got a search warrant for this house, and when they searched the house, they went out on the back patio and opened the utility closet on the balcony patio out there on the apartment patio. There's usually a closet out there, and the detective could smell the smell of decaying flesh. Found the body in a bag, and it was charred remains of a 5-year-old child, and there was matching bone fragments in the fireplace. So, not a good story, but fireplace related. Stay away from people that do that, obviously. Anyway, so moving on. This is another fireplace story here. In July of this year, just a month ago, a man in Oklahoma had an explosion in his living room after he tried to light his fireplace for the first time. Apparently, he just bought this new home, and the previous owner had never used the fireplace. And when he lit that puppy up, the whole wall blew off of the chimney and everything. And it says that the explosion threw the man 11 feet across the room, and it blew a hole in the wall. Like I said, all the sheetrock and everything came off of the chimney all the way up. The whole side of the wall was blown off. There is pictures of this online. I'm not gonna show them because I don't. It's just I'm trying to do my own news. Like news is a fair use, but you know how YouTube is with copyright laws and photos with copyright on the photo. So I'm trying to just do my own news instead of referencing everything and even getting myself into that. But I did a lot of research on this story, and there was a gas leak. Apparently, he lit the gas igniter, and there was a gas leak that had filled the entire wall up with gas. So when he lit the fire, it just blew the wall off, and there was no reports of injuries. He didn't say he had any third-degree burns, second-degree burns, nothing. It just says it threw him 11 feet across the room, destroyed his living room, and he's going to get insurance to pay for the repairs. Apparently, he's not even going to press charges or try to sue the previous owner or the builder or anything, because he's just going to take the insurance money and repair it and go on. So probably okay and everything, but pretty weird story there. Usually they have to check those fireplaces for leaks and make sure the system is sealed. So somehow a leak developed in that wall. But next we have from August 28th, just a few days ago, in Vernon Parish, Louisiana, there was some arson that caused a fire at a logging company. And this fire burned over $500,000 worth of logging equipment. A couple skidders and a truck or something got burned up. And this was after the crew had left for work for the day. Somebody came in and started a fire. Now, the local authorities are looking for clues for that suspect. They want to know any information. You're supposed to contact them. So I don't know. There's no telling if that was kids playing or a homeless person or who knows. Some vagrant, some wandering person came through and started a fire in the wood yard and burned up a bunch of equipment. $500,000. So next, in other logging related news, if you want to get into some trouble and have a big pain in the butt, I would start a logging company because they are constantly fighting for permits and environmental people and everything else. But I thought this story was kind of neat because of these mussels. There was a Finland logging operation where some protected mussels were damaged, and the operation had to be halted until they can remediate the problem. They'll have to, obviously, you know how the government is, you'll have to come up with some type of remediation plan and a plan for future use of the land that will solve the problem and everything. But they drove across a protected freshwater stream. The Hookajoki stream is what it was. So let me backtrack. These mussels, they live in these freshwater streams. They've been endangered since 1955, and they're only found in about 100 streams and rivers across Finland. And they require really clean fresh water. They're called freshwater pearl mussels. And these mussels, they live up to 200 years, which I thought was pretty cool. They live up to 200 years in fresh water over there in Finland. And this logging company drove through a stream on August 15th. Like I said, it's the Hookajoki stream. And these trucks stirred up a bunch of sediment and everything and whatever, and they killed thousands of these mussels apparently. So they had to put a halt on those logging operations, come up with a remediation plan, and they lost some mussels over there. I hope you followed that story. I know I kind of jumped around a lot, but I'm sure you get the gist. So speaking of logging and that kind of thing, since that's kind of sad, on a more positive note, there have been studies that show that when logging is done sustainably, responsibly, and especially like micro logging or low intensity logging is what they call it, that does not harm the ecosystems very much. They typically recover fully within a decade. And when you're doing these micro logging or low intensity, well-managed sustainable logging projects, they say that the removal rates of trees in those smaller projects isn't enough to harm plant diversity. And they can also act as corridors for wildlife to move to and from protected areas, clearings and corridors. So as long as there's not people that are hunting them in the clearings when they're trying to move, I guess. But yeah, that's what they said, that they can act as corridors for wildlife to move around and forage and that type of thing too. But apparently, as far as carbon storage, seed dispersal, and animal food sources and habitat, it's not affected much by these low-intensity projects if you do it in small, isolated pockets and let the forest regrow. And like I said, it recovers within a decade. So that was pretty cool news there. And I think that about wraps it up today, boys and girls, for the Firewood News Update. Thanks for checking that out. And I put a lot of work into these videos. It comes when it comes. So as soon as we get more firewood news in the next month or two, I will try to get another video up and coming, because I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat waiting for these firewood news updates. But once again, thank you. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. If you subscribe, make sure you watch the videos. See you guys next time.